Hi, welcome back to Key Concepts in Technology. Today we're having a discussion with my colleague David Rebez for the topic on media and mediation. And David is a great scholar of the sociology of science and technology. And he does an incredible job researching on a couple of different levels. He does empirical work, looking at how scientists and technologists actually do their own work, and also uses really sophisticated analytical models to understand the relationship between the social domain and the technical and scientific domains. And this connects with the unit that we're studying on media and mediation and the longer continuum of approaches that we're using in the course, especially our approach for de-blackboxing, that is, getting inside the really complicated and important network of dependencies that make technologies have the effects that they have in our lives and in society at large. And this week you had a chance to read some early works by Marshall McLuhan, who's famous for talking about the medium itself containing information as a message beyond the content. And he opened up an amazing set of questions that he and other scientists and theorists of the time weren't really prepared to answer, but his incredible main insight was, and he kept saying this over and over again to everyone's annoyance, that the power of television, the actual power of television as a medium embedded in society and in life, is far more powerful than any individual content that's transmitted over television. So people would frequently look at content delivered through TV or radio or film as what it is that affects people in society. And McLuhan turned it around and said, we actually need to look at the power of the medium itself and not the content. And I always like to think, well, we can do McLuhan 2.0 because these are the exact same questions, the kind of question that enables us to probe into what it is that makes all of our complex technologies work the way we perceive them to do. So we can ask, well, what is it about a PC, an iPhone, a mobile device that seems so totalized and unified to us as products? What gives them the force, the effects, the influence, the impact, all these words that we use for our technologies that we attribute to them? And once we open up that black box, we find this incredible, complex social, technical, economic, political system that makes everything that we observe happen the way it does while it stays invisible and often closed off from view. And David, you're really good at working these principles through with students. And I know you've thought about, something like the iPhone as a great case for opening this up. How would you use the iPhone as a case for de-blackboxing and getting inside to what really makes the technologies work? Sure.
This is a great framing of thinking about the medium over the message, the medium being the message. The iPhone is, we tend to think of just what's on that screen, right? And we dig right onto the content of what we want to observe. But I like the way that you're shifting our attention to the object itself and the kinds of technologies that it's made out of. And when we're talking about technologies here, we're not just talking, of course, about hardware, we're also talking about software. So I want to turn our attention to a controversy that occurred in 2010 around the use of Flash on iPhones. So one thing that anybody who uses an iPhone will be aware of is when they go to a website and there's a Flash object, Adobe Flash object as a kind of software platform that allows you to watch either videos or interact with it. Well, the first thing that happens is you can't do it through your iPad or your iPhone. Anything that's iOS, it won't load Flash. So why is that the case? So maybe if you're not de-blackboxing, if you're thinking just at the superficial level, you're just saying, oh, this is frustrating, how annoying. But in fact, fact, there's an enormous technical depth to that issue. So what I want to do today is use a methodology that we have developed in sociology of science known as controversy studies. This is a really great trick. It's kind of a trick, almost, that we sociologists use to make sense of very, very technical objects. So I'm a sociologist. I'm not trained as either a programmer or a hardware designer. None of those skills are my skills. My skills are understanding human action, human debates, and ways in which institutions can interact, and so on. So how does someone like me make sense of something like Flash not working on a phone? Well, controversy studies is an excellent methodology to do that. Controversy studies means that you find an event that occurred in the past in which there was a debate that occurred in public. Two or more people debating amongst themselves. And what occurs when there's a debate about a technical matter, a controversy, what occurs is that those participants, what we call the actors in actor network theory, the actors themselves will do a lot of the de-blackboxing for you. They will, amongst themselves, debate technical issues that they understand very well and lay them out in very clear ways. This is what's beautiful about the controversy study method. It lays things out for you that we otherwise wouldn't be able to understand.
So it's those points of breakdown from the point of view of the user, right, or the observer, or where there's so much friction in the system that you can't help but notice that this complex combinatorial artifact that we're using is dependent on so many other forces that we can't see, we can't observe them.
Exactly. And how can we, as social analysts, come to understand those highly invisible, black box, background infrastructural elements? They're so technical, we can't dedicate years to understanding these kinds of issues. So the controversy study is a method by which other people explain it to us, essentially. So let me go back to this controversy that occurred in 2010. So in 2010, Apple's releasing an iteration of its iPad and a new iteration of its iPhone, and also the new iOS operating system 4.0. At that point, they changed the rules and said, any kind of app that is going to be appearing on our iPhone or iPads or any of our other devices has to be generated using our SDK, our software development package. You can no longer use, until then you could use many other kinds of packages, including, for example, the Flash package. Many people developed apps using a Flash set of tools that were made available by Adobe.
It became a multimedia platform that a lot of people developed on because at one point, there were players in every OS that would play it. Right?
Exactly. So we've got 4 years. 2006 is when the iPhone comes out. 4 years of people developing apps using Flash, mostly, or a series of other tools. And then all of a sudden, Apple comes along and says, no longer can you do this. You must use our SDK, our software development package. And this erupted in all kinds of controversy, enormous controversy and debate that occurred on the web. All I did before having this chat with you was I spent about 20 minutes sort of refreshing my memory about this. This is what's beautiful about the controversy studies method. All I did was go to Google and say, Apple Flash iOS controversy.
Millions of...
all these entries come up all of a sudden, very well describing the kind of issues that occurred there. What was it about? Well, on the one hand, we've got Steve Jobs saying, Flash sucks. Flash uses up a lot of battery, and we want these things to last. You've got Steve Jobs saying Flash is proprietary as a standard, and we want to have an open web. We've got Steve Jobs saying that it crashes things all the time, and in fact, he actually said that the highest reason for crashes for Macs is because of Flash. Right? So we've got him saying that. But then we've got the reverse starts occurring. The other actors, the other technical actors, the people representing Adobe and programmers start saying, not true. Absolutely untrue. We've got quotes in the New York Times that you can look up really easily. An article in the New York Times where Adobe is saying, our system works really well. We've got many developers working on this, and we're pushing the mobile platform forward. Then you've got all kinds of bloggers saying, this is actually a move by Apple to try to control the web. What they really want is to make sure that nobody but them can put applications onto this device, and that the only way you can get access to device, the content of the web is through them. They want to control their own application space. And that there's a battle going on with Adobe, a kind of sort of the relationships that were great once between Adobe and now with Apple fell apart over time. All right, so we've got both sides of the story are playing out on the web, and it took me only 10 or 20 minutes to just look through and find out all kinds of things about standards, about the nature of the industry, about the ways in which these phones are designed, the battery use, the CPU use of each kind of either HTML or Flash. All of that is revealed really nicely by the actors themselves who understand these technical issues in ways that I never could.
Right. Yeah, that's a terrific method to use, and there's so many ways we can apply it. Looking at any of those friction points or breakdown points where you see that, well, here's something, whether it's, say your wireless network is slow, or any functional property of our devices that isn't working for one way or the other, right? It's so easy for people to get frustrated and just say, oh, the device isn't working or something.
Right.
When you're looking at the system, well, there's so many, in a network, so many points of failure. Who knows why the network is slow, right?
Right.
But we often project it onto the device and say,
right.
oh, the device isn't working or something.
And we stop there.
Yeah, right. As opposed to saying, well, actually, the complexities of things that have to interoperate and connect to get this to work are really enormous.
Right.
And the standards battle is one of them.
Right.
Standards are like one of those topics that always just seems so boring to get into. But when you realize how everything that we're using in the computational and internet and wireless and software world depends upon standards.
Absolutely.
I mean,
standards are often invisible political battlegrounds. They're the ways in which one company or an entire domain can take control of, in this case, the web, through a standard, something that's so invisible, small, boring sounding, but in fact, it's just filled with politics, battles, and each one of them sort of ground into our devices. This is why the black box is a really nice example. What I just did is open up the inability to have Flash, a standard, used through your device, and in fact reveal an industrial, economic debate that's going on around this one particular set of standards. And here's some, the other interest, this idea of agency I know that you've been discussing several times in the class, and that Bruno Latour really articulates very, very well in his paper on mediation. Who are we when we use these phones? What are we as agents? Bruno Latour wants us to think of ourselves not as just agents, as you and I, as distinct individual things, but what is the unity between me and this phone? We become different things. He uses the example of a gun and a person and says when you put a gun and a person together, they're a different kind of agent than either the gun or the individual before the gun. The same is true with this phone. I'll give you the example, drawing on the Flash example again. Every time that I go to a website, say, for example, a YouTube website.
Yeah, play something on YouTube, yeah.
Every time I go there, Google is perfectly aware that it is iOS that is coming to them.
Google Analytics records every operating system, every device.
It knows how long we were there. It knows what platform we were using, what version of the operating system we were using. And so that awareness to them, it's almost like a vote. We've said to Google, we are using iOS, and therefore don't even bother supporting Flash. Send it to us in HTML5, because that is the kind of agent that together I am. We're almost all, essentially in a sense, we're all fighting the battle for Apple to either create an open web, but also to fight against Adobe at the same time in those gestures. And we don't have a choice in that. As long as you've made a choice to buy this object and use it, you are both fighting against Adobe and fighting for an open web at the same time.
So that's a great example. And following Latour's line of thought, it always struck me that, you know, his example in the technical mediation essay is that when we're using network devices, right, you can say that, well, there's hardware and software and networks. You could say that's one domain of things. But when we become mobile network device, multimedia software, handheld mobile agents, you know, whatever that is, you know what I mean? That is a very different kind of thing. I mean, we're absorbing, we're taking on all this kind of distributed agency. And I think Latour even says, you know, stored labor and stored intentionality, stored cognitive effort, right?
Absolutely.
The history of everything that happened technically to get to here is astounding, right?
Absolutely. And it's with us still today.
Yes.
It hasn't gone away. This is what's another beauty of the controversy study. It reveals the history of something that cannot be seen in the flatness of this device. We carry with us still today the consequences of those standards battles that occurred 4 years ago. And that could be with us for years to come, many years. Yeah. So just, I think, 2 weeks ago, Google, now if you do a search on Google through your phone, iOS, or an iPad, Google will tell you the website that you're about to go to has Flash on it. You won't be able to access it. So you don't even bother going anymore. It's routing you right around anything that has Flash.
So the search is filtering out, right, even the use.
Exactly.
So even if you had the software to play Flash,
exactly,
it's flagging it for you.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and we could. Once you start working with this method, you could take any form of media,
Absolutely.
right, that we mediate, right, through our computational devices. We could talk about music formats the same way. We could talk about photo and image formats,
Absolutely.
other kinds of video formats.
Absolutely.
Right? Everything we take for granted, right, has this incredible backstory,
Absolutely.
right, of how it came to be.
There's a geek culture for just about every format or standard that you can think of.
Right.
If you want to find out something about why we use MP3s on our phone,
sure.
you could find, well, there's histories that are written, and those historians who are like me, social science trained in one way or another, themselves have relied on the incredibly complex technical debates that are documented online. There's handbooks online, there's debates about which standard, what should be used, there's endless debates on Reddit over whether MP3 is better than using a vinyl record or worse. And those debates, those technical debates, always play out for you what is relevant, what is at stake, and in ways that we could never access ourselves, short of getting PhDs in programming.
But then we're always experiencing the current state of the outputs of all of that. So whatever this standards, industry ecosystem, technical, social, mediated world we're in now, this is the current implementation. Right? We're living in it. Right? It's one instance, and it's going to keep migrating and developing.
Absolutely.
And these methods are great for once people have a chance to think it through and work with the method. You can see how applicable it is to so many. You could apply this to your car. You could apply it to any complex technical artifact that we have.
Absolutely, and I encourage students, researchers to do so. It takes so much labor off our back to try to understand these technical complexities and shift over that labor, that work of an understanding to another group of people.
Letting the controversy expose all of the details, because as you said, the controversy is going to engage all the different actors that have any stake in the issue.
Exactly. So when you open a black box, what you don't find on the inside isn't just what we'd call technical in a narrow sense. You find the politics, the institutions, the organizations, the financial flows in there. All those actors are caring about that. Technical actors, people like Adobe programmers, they aren't only interested in technical things. They're interested in, Adobe is a company. It wants to make money. It wants to be global. It wants to not get cut out of the market. And so all those things are playing out. It's socio-technical what is revealed.
Absolutely. If closing now, if someone were to ask you, okay, why does all this matter? Because I always like to leave people with, okay, why does this matter? Why opening things up like this for people with non-technical careers, non-technical jobs, but who do want to understand what's going on in technology better? Like, what would you say? The answer to the question. Okay, why does it matter to work this through and think this through? Absolutely,
it's a really hard question, because part of me wants to say an awareness of these kinds of technical issues is going to help us make decisions. We can all make decisions now just based on what I've said today and the 20 minutes of research I did earlier. Maybe we want to support Apple more and its vision of the web, or maybe we want to say Adobe does really wonderful things as well. It's got great design programs and has contributed also to the world. So do we want to support this object? That's what part of me wants to say. But the other part of me wants to say, this is one tiny black box I've opened of
this is
tens
only one
of thousands.
Instance, right? One case.
Absolutely.
In which,
there's probably an infinite number of black boxes that we could open up here around standards battles and around flows of power and agency that we've just described, many, many more. And so I'm not going to make a decision about buying this iPhone based on this Flash controversy. In fact, if I added 10 more controversies, I don't know if that would be the reason why I make these decisions anyways, right? I make these decisions based on my how many of my friends are using it, how easy it is to use, and a bunch of other sort of more personal reasons. So part of me wants to say it's important to know these kinds of issues, and part of me wants to say that in the end, there's too many black boxes to open. So the real question is going to be, which black boxes do we need to open, and what decisions do we, which ones do we need to politicize? I think that's a really challenging question.
Yeah, it is. And I think part of the motivation behind this course is to give people the tools, the concepts, the analytical methods, the approaches where they can, it's like a DIY, it's like a do-it-yourself toolkit.
Right.
Once you have a sense of how to work with these methods and concepts, you can find those areas in your own career and in your own personal life of cases that really matter to you.
Exactly.
Right? And now here you have a method, right, to say, all right, there's something going on here, and this really matters to me, so how do I figure it out? How do I understand it? Right? We can't do it for everything, like you said, there's too many black boxes. But I think the great thing is that the ones that we're going to care about, right, and the ones that really interest us, we'll have the tools for getting deeper inside things that normally remain just on the surface.
Exactly.
For most of the time. That's great. Thanks so much, David. Well, thanks for joining our conversation on media and mediation with David Ribes, and we'll see you next time.